John faced an unexpected turn in his relationship when Sarah, his beloved girlfriend, began acting strangely. His once warm and caring girlfriend had turned cold and absent to the point he couldn't even recognize her. He felt the love they once had wasn't there anymore. John and Sarah sat on the couch totally silent. Both were scared to speak and say what was on their mind. After a long pause, Sarah finally decided to break the unbearable silence. "John, I haven't been entirely honest with you." John felt shivers coming up his spine as Sarah uttered those words. There were countless scenarios in John's mind that could explain Sarah's strange behavior, but none of them was positive. He had one positive thought. Maybe she wanted to surprise him with some happy news but didn't know how to tell him. On the other hand, what if the secret was the complete opposite? What if she was having an affair and didn't love him anymore? Either way, he knew she would tell him something that would change everything. When John and Sarah met 6 months ago, sparks between them were clear as a bell. John grew really fond of Sarah and wanted to spend more and more time with her. John came up with a perfect plan and decided to surprise Sarah with a romantic and intimate dinner. He would pick her up from work and take her to a secret spot. When they arrived at the destination, a surprise had already been prepared. Without taking the blindfold off, John gently guided Sarah to her seat. But out of nowhere, she dashed away, leaving John without any explanation. John just stood there, all alone. Sarah's action has left him speechless. John really felt emotional that evening. He was confused and wanted some answers to clear his head. He decided to reach out and send her a message. He checked his phone over and over again, expecting her to respond, but she never did. The first thing John did the following day was check his phone. Still no message, still no response. Sarah had the day off. He decided to pay her a visit and have a genuine talk with her. As John turned the corner onto Sarah's street, he saw Sarah walking out of her front door. He was afraid she would see him, so he quickly hid behind a large bush. As he watched her walk away, he couldn't help but wonder where she was going. There was just only one way for him to find out. He decided to follow her. As he followed Sarah, John tried to stay as calm as possible. Finally, Sarah sat down on a park bench. John quickly hid behind a tree while still keeping an eye on her. He knew he couldn't lose her out of sight. John wondered why would she go there. Not long after, a woman approached Sarah. They hugged and sat back on the bench. The woman acted very friendly towards Sarah. Their pleasant conversation quickly took another turn. It seems like Sarah was sad and overly anxious. John couldn't hear what they were talking about, but it was clearly something serious. Sarah's friend was trying to make her feel better and comfort her. After a while, the two of them hugged and went their separate ways. Sarah sat back down. Suddenly, John's phone rang. He was glad she called him and answered as soon as he got away. "Hey, John." Sarah was reluctant to speak. John replied as calmly as he could. "Hello, Sarah." Sarah apologized for leaving out of the blue and not responding to his messages. She wanted to have a conversation with John. John thought to himself, this doesn't sound good at all. As they began their conversation, a large truck passed right next to John, making so much noise he couldn't even hear his thoughts. Sarah was feeling a bit suspicious and asked John where he was. John quickly changed the subject, trying to avoid any explanation about his whereabouts. "I'm just out and about, you know." John wanted to see her, so he suggested they meet up tomorrow after work at her place. Sarah wanted to say something, but John ended the conversation. John looked forward to the next day. He will finally get some answers about Sarah's strange behavior and about that unknown woman. The long-awaited moment for Sarah and John's encounter arrived. John was very excited and made sure he would look his best. John stood before Sarah's door and wondered, what if he got the whole thing wrong? John somehow managed to calm himself. After he took a couple of deep breaths, he finally dared to knock on the door. "Hi, John," Sarah greeted him with a half smile. That wasn't a good sign. "It's good to see you," John responded while entering the house. He forced a smile while covering his true feelings. They sat on the couch and sipped their wine without saying a word. John wanted her to start the conversation and explain things. John knew he had to break the ice and take the initiative. "Sarah, there's something I need to ask you," uttered John. Sarah finally looked John straight in the eyes. "No, I need to speak first." "John, I haven't been completely honest with you," Sarah said as her voice began to break. "I tried to hide it as long as I could, but I can't anymore." This whole situation was unbearable for John. Sarah finally started talking. Her voice seemed sincere and genuine. "There is something about me that you need to know," she confided. "This is a big part of my life, and I have carried this secret for so long now. I hope you will forgive me for not telling you this earlier. I was afraid of being judged." John was just waiting for the words to come out. Sarah had a confused look on her face. She couldn't believe John was getting angry with her while she had such a hard time speaking up. "Does this bother you? Are you getting angry with me while I'm trying to find the words to tell you the most important thing in my life?" John saw how much that irritated and hurt Sarah, and he immediately knew he made a mistake. "I didn't mean it like that. I lied to you," said John. "I had a specific reason for being out today. I was following you." Sarah looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "Things between us were complicated lately, and after that night you left, I had to know what was going on, and I saw you with a woman." Sarah was in disbelief. She never expected this from John. "You followed me. You mean spied on me." Her voice was filled with frustration and anger. John tried to explain himself as best as he could. "I just care about you so much. You were acting so secretively, and I began to worry. You wouldn't tell me anything, so I decided to find out on my own." John broke her trust and was now only hoping that Sarah could find it in her heart to forgive him and tell him what was bothering her. The situation had spiraled out of control, and Sarah hadn't planned it to go this way. Sarah wanted a more relaxed setting to reveal her secret. John's actions had her questioning her decision. She wasn't even sure if she wanted to tell him anymore. Maybe this was a mistake in the first place, Sarah thought. Sarah knew she had to do the right thing. She decided to cool things off and handle the situation. She sat beside John and gently took both of his hands. "We haven't made the right choices, John, the both of us. You spied on me, and I haven't been honest with you. We need to say everything we want, tonight." Sarah's words gave hope to John. Maybe they will stay together after all and continue their relationship. "Sarah, it is your turn. Tell me everything." "John, listen carefully. I need to confess something." "John, please try to understand me. This isn't an easy thing to say to someone, especially someone you care about." "Tell me what, Sarah. You can count on me. I'm here for you always," John said with a worried expression on his face. "I'm transgender, John." Sarah said that so quietly she couldn't even hear herself. John was in shock. Out of all things, he never expected that to be Sarah's secret. He sat in silence, completely frozen. Sarah started crying as she had never felt this vulnerable in her life. "John, I know you didn't expect this. I understand if you want to be alone and think things through. I know it is a lot to take in." John shook his head. "No, Sarah. I just wanted to know that sooner." Sarah wiped her tears away while her voice trembled with fear. "I wanted to confess everything, but I was too scared. I didn't want to be rejected. I thought you wouldn't understand." "Sarah, you mean the world to me. I care about you very much. I'm not interested in your past or your gender identity," John said with warmth and honesty in his voice. "What matters is what's inside your heart. I love you and care about you as a person." Sarah felt relieved as she heard those words. Her eyes were sparkling. "You really think that, John?" John pulled her closer and hugged her. "I really mean that. I wished you trusted me enough to tell me sooner." Finally, everything was out in the open. John felt better after knowing Sarah wasn't unfaithful. He feared that the most, but one question remained unanswered. "Who is the woman you met at the park?" asked John. Sarah took a deep breath and replied, "That was the last woman I dated before I transitioned. We were together in high school. My high school sweetheart. She was there for me through my transition. She has always supported me." John and Sarah were up all night talking about the future of their relationship. Sarah's gender identity was a big change for John, and he certainly would need some time adjusting and learning about what it all meant. After all that happened, the relationship between Sarah and John was more stable than ever before. The courage Sarah had to confess her secret made them better and stronger. The foundation for their love was set, and the bond they shared was based on honesty and trust. There is still a long path ahead, with many ups and downs, but as long as they are committed to each other, they will walk that path together.